Have you ever found yourself staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. in the morning, wide awake, while everyone else in the house is asleep? You look at the clock, 3:07, again. And here's the most confusing part. You weren't laying there worrying in the evening or at bedtime when you went to bed. You actually went in, fell asleep just fine. So, why are you awake now? Is it stress? Is it menopause? Is it cortisol? Or is it something else entirely happening? If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Middle of the night, waking up is something I hear about frequently from my women during their treatments here at my office. And today I want to explain some of the reasons it can be happening, because the answer isn't always what you've been told or what you may think. My name is Milca. I am a nurse practitioner. My office is based out of Columbia, Maryland. I help women in the perimenopause, menopause transition area. And I have this conversation many times with my women. A woman falls asleep without any trouble. Then sometime in the middle of the night, she wakes up. Sometimes she's hot, sometimes she's anxious, sometimes she may need to use the bathroom, and sometimes she's just awake. And today, let's talk about why that may actually be happening. First, sleep is not one long continuous state. Okay? Throughout the night, we move from repeated cycles of lighter sleep, deeper sleep, and REM sleep. Early in the night, we generally spend more time in deep sleep. As the night progresses, deep sleep decreases, REM period becomes longer, and there are more opportunities for brief waking ups. Normally, you may not even remember them. At the same time, your circadian rhythm is preparing your body for the morning. Cortisol is normally lowest earlier in the night and begins rising during the later part of the sleep. So, waking up at 3 or 4 a.m. doesn't automatically mean that something is wrong with your cortisol. The better question is, what is turning a woman's brief awakening into where she's fully wide awake and can go back to sleep? And in midlife, there can be several contributors. Hormonal changes. Let's start with that. Okay. During perimenopause and eventually into menopause, estrogen and progesterone fluctuate and eventually declines. These hormonal changes can affect sleep directly and indirectly. For example, estrogen is associated with vasomotor symptoms, hot flashes, and night sweats, which can repeatedly interrupt sleep. And progesterone and its metabolites interact with the brain system involved in sleep and calming down. But this is important. Not every 3 a.m. awakening is caused by hormones. Menopause may be part of the picture without being the entire explanation. Night sweats for some women, the reason is obvious. You wake up, you're hot. Maybe the covers are off. Maybe your clothes or your sheet is damp. A night sweat can pull you completely out of sleep. And once you're awake, getting back to sleep can be difficult. If that's happening regularly, tell your clinician, especially if you're having night sweats rather than simply, I'm not sleeping. That distinction matters. Anxiety and mood. For other women, there's not a hot flash. They simply wake up and suddenly their brain is running. Tomorrow's schedule, work, family, something that happened yesterday, something that might happen 6 months from tomorrow. Perimenopause is associated with an increased vulnerability to mood and anxiety symptoms in some women. And anxiety can make it difficult to fall asleep or return to sleep. But again, we shouldn't automatically assume that every midlife waking up is hormonal or anxiety. We need the whole picture. Alcohol. And then there's alcohol. Alcohol may make you feel sleepy and help you fall asleep initially. But later in the night, it can fragment sleep and increase awakenings. So if you're consistently waking up during the second half of the night, it's worth looking at alcohol as a possible contributor, especially if you're drinking before bedtime, even if you're falling asleep without a problem. And what about cortisol? This is one I really want to clarify. You'll hear online, if you're waking up at 3 a.m., cortisol is too high. That is far too simplistic. Cortisol follows a normal circadian rhythm. It should begin increasing before morning. That normal rise itself is not evidence that cortisol is the disorder. So I would not diagnose a cortisol simply because someone wakes up at 3 o'clock in the morning. We need to ask, what else is happening? And there's the possibility that deserves more attention in midlife. Okay? Sleep apnea. Obstructive sleep apnea is often associated with the classic picture of somebody who's overweight, snores loudly, and stops breathing during sleep. Women don't always present that way. Women may report insomnia, frequent waking up, fatigue in the morning or headaches, mood symptoms, or simply feeling not rested even after long hours of laying down. And the prevalence of obstructive sleep apnea increases with menopause. If you're waking up repeatedly during the night, especially if you snore, awake, gasping or choking, have morning headaches or dry mouth, you feel excessively sleepy during the daytime, or someone has noticed you pausing in your breathing while you sleep, please bring that up with your healthcare provider. Because we don't want to assume that every sleep problem in a woman over 40 is just menopause. So, when should you investigate this wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning? An occasional bad night happens. Stress happens. Travel happens. Alcohol, the celebrations, illnesses, medications, pain. Even your bedroom environment can affect your sleep. But if you're waking up during the night regularly and it's affecting how you function during the daytime, it's worth discussing. And instead of walking into your appointment saying, I'm tired, give your clinical pattern. You might say, I fall asleep without any trouble. But I wake up at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, several nights a week, and sometimes I can't go back to sleep. Then add what happens with it. Do you wake up hot? Do you wake up anxious? Do you wake up to use the bathroom? Are you snoring? Do you wake up with a headache or your mouth dry? Are your legs comfortable or uncomfortable? Are you taking medication that affects sleep? How do you feel the next day? These details help determine whether we are looking at menopause symptoms, insomnia, sleep apnea, anxiety, or depression, medication effects, another medical issue altogether, or several things happening all at once. That is a much more useful clinical conversation than simply saying, I didn't sleep well. I want to leave you with this. 3 o'clock in the morning can feel very lonely hour. The house is quiet, you are exhausted, but you're awake. And eventually you start wondering, is this just what getting older feels like? Well, not necessarily, okay? Your sleep can change during the menopause transition, but menopause should not become the explanation for every symptom without asking what else might be contributing. Sometimes hormone matters. Sometimes it's a sleep disorder. Sometimes anxiety, alcohol, medication, pain, or another medical issue is contributing. And sometimes it's more than one thing. The goal isn't to blame one hormone. The goal is to understand your pattern, because once we understand the pattern you're having, we can start asking better questions for you. Now, if today's video helped you understand your body a little bit better, I'd love you to stay here. I share weekly videos to help women understand perimenopause, menopause, hormones, sleep, metabolism, and the healthy aging. If you know another woman who's been struggling with this, please share the video with her. She may be wondering the very same thing. And remember, your symptoms are real. Understanding them is the first step towards feeling better. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.